And now, the main news on Radio Tingalo, brought to you by Moose Milling and Zambia Catholic University. Radio Echangle, restoring everything in Christ with love and truth. Good afternoon. With the main news, I'm Kennedy Mbewa Jr. The headlines: Total darkness engulfs Kitwe Teaching Hospital. Some Kitwe residents suggest ways of fighting corruption. Be available to God's will. Kindly be informed that we are also streaming live on the Radio Echangle Facebook page to you watching us via social media. The details: Kitwe Teaching Hospital was last night left in total darkness after a faulty cleaning machine in one of the wards caused a short circuit and interrupted power supply to the entire health facility. There was panic among electricians and other hospital staff before power was restored 15 minutes later. And the authority at the hospital has denied reports that some patients on life support died due to power outage. We visited Kitwe Teaching Hospital to talk to Dr. Abdan Chansar, who is the senior medical superintendent. Last night, this institution never had power for 15 minutes, and it was reported that patients who were on life supporting machines died. But what really happened? So let me go now to Dr. Abdan Chansar's office and find out more details on the matter.
In the night around 20-30 hours, there was power outage at the hospital, which started around 20:30. And I can confirm that this power outage took about 15 minutes, and our electricians were on hand to resolve the problem.
What caused the power outage?
Faulty cleaning machine in the Wapula ward, which caused a short circuit, which unfortunately affected the entire hospital. What we are looking at as management is to find out why an electrical fault in one ward would affect the entire hospital. And one would ask why the genset did not come on. The genset is configured in such a way that it kicks in when there is a ZESCO fault, but this was not a ZESCO fault, but a fault within the hospital.
Was there any record of death as a result of the power interruption for 15 minutes?
There was no loss of life. The patients that we lost were not from the wards where there are critically ill patients, that is ICU and the neonatal care unit. We lost a patient who we had in our custody for the last 4 days, and 2 premature babies that were admitted in 24 hours. And these died, all the 3 mortalities happened before the power outage had happened.
As I leave Dr. Chansar's office and walk in the corridors of the hospital, the bottom line of the story is that, yes, there was an interruption of power at the hospital for 15 minutes, but no patient in the ICU died as a result of power failure. Kennedy Mbewa Jr. at the Kitwe Teaching Hospital. Moving on. The Patriot Front PF in Kitwe has advised aspiring candidates not to discredit incumbent members of parliament. Party Kitwe District Chairperson Evariste Chilufya said those seeking to run for political office in next year's elections should instead engage the electorate and outline programs they intend to work on once given the mandate. Speaking to Radio Chamberlain News, Mr. Chilufya said it is unfortunate that some candidates positioning themselves were tarnishing the image of some sitting-in councillors and parliamentarians.
You know, we have incumbent, both councillors and MPs. So we don't expect an aspiring to go there to denouncing the sitting MP or the sitting councillor to the people. That will come when there will be 50-50. But now there is a 90% against 10%, because the one who has 90 is the one who is in the office. So you don't go out there to denounce that person. Well, my humble appeal is that let these people who are campaign with due respect to those who are in the offices.
And Mr. Chilufya has encouraged the residents of Kitwe to take advantage of the remaining days to register as voters.
Everyone who is above 18 years to exercise his democratic right to vote when time comes, but you cannot vote if you don't register. So the registration is now. Centers are many, and the hours of operation have been extended. You know, we always do when it comes to withdrawing money at the bank. We are always patient when we are withdrawing money. So let our people exercise that patience to be in the queue and register.
In Ndola, residents of Masala want the Electoral Commission of Zambia, ECZ, to extend the voter registration exercise that will end on December 12, 2020. The residents argued that the registration process has been slow, as the manpower deployed to handle the process has not been adequate. In an interview, the residents added that the Electoral Commission of Zambia will not capture the targeted rather 9 million would-be voters if the exercise is not extended.
Bantu abantu abalifu okulembesha bengi babikuma chitota bagwera bwangu tabakwata chance bakwata chance pasani.
It's better about to increase our days, because kumona newspaper leveling yesterday they were saying we could still capture 4 million. Now the target was 9 million. No, by 9 million kasa washani vaisala pa 12.
Kulunda chibatulunja kwanta matezi na chipa. Elo futa abene bale ambu kopesha mavoters card. Tabali fast, very slow. Now remember bambema rejero bale lembesa. So la fune balunda kwensu. Tabushina bena maka special maka vote kona bena mkoe.
And the movement for voter sensitization on the Copperbelt is urging people to utilize the remaining few days and register as voters. Speaking to Radio Chingla News in Chingola, Movement Provincial Board Secretary Bishop Ellison Walia also expressed happiness with the way the exercise was progressing.
It's the reason why we are encouraging people. Rise up in numbers, encourage your family, encourage your sisters, call one another and tell them there is still time, they should not give up. We just have some people who are discouraging people. Others, you know, there is always such kind of people. They are discouraging people. There is too much of chilaini, you'll be late for work and whatever. But when people go there, they are finding that the system for registration is not even taking too long. It's only about 4 to 5 minutes. One is done.
Moving on, some Kitwe residents have been discussing ways of fighting corruption. Speaking to Radio Chingla News ahead of the International Anti-Corruption Day, which falls every 9th of December, the residents said there was need for political will in fighting the vice. Other residents say the fight against corruption should begin from public offices.
Yeah, my friends, that's everywhere you go. Corruption, especially my government institution. Being kuma clinic, mulesangati, abo baleta things. Murabantu bakwebati, nakwatauka nolo mwapera, ewala balatera bwangu, ishali father. We are sweating no. So man, wabaramalisakanwayo.
Ante chichonze chomulechita bana mkwenu police. Singa mwaya ngata wingi shemu lulu wabeta afume nomba some of us met that quite shisha kwa bati to wash. Give an example, brother wanzine bali mukata wali kubati to wingi shemu ano nomba afume. Okay, there was a corruption, but as at now most of the people they are doing corruption. You feel abantu abano understand what corruption is. Mama inga ndineka kumune kwa kutushe corruption. Kati kuisha neka unless Mungu atayopia na twabako twafla.
Ichinshanze no istaba bapanga corruption. Instructed twingire without corruption. Mama naka. Nakwati uteko kwa imachi kwashi bakushe. Befine bashitana padi ama cases yandu alika for serious. to say all so Vaidika corruption as something which is illegal. Omana kanga bakusanga it's a crime. Ero inga problem. Otherwise, I want to let you.
Kito residents commenting on corruption, which falls tomorrow, and the Alliance for Good Governance. President Joseph Chelesha has observed that corruption retards national development. Mr. Chelesha stressed that people with the mandate of managing public resources should ensure that they do not plunder the money at the expense of Zambians. He has since spoken against abating those found involved in corrupt acts, adding that there should be no undue influence from top government officials, but ensure that the Anti-Corruption Commission operates independently.
Corruption needs to be worked on and enhanced by ensuring that efforts are put towards the fight against corruption. Corruption is really a disease that can bring a nation down in the sense that development is hampered as a result of too much corruption. And we can only, as the Alliance for Good Governance, appeal to those in power to put in more effort by ensuring that more seriousness in terms of fighting this corruption. An example is what President Wilson Wanawafa did recently. He fought corruption in totality by putting more effort by ensuring that even those that were serving, they were not spared, and they were told that if you are found wanting, the law will take it.
Joseph Chelesha there. We now move on to the church. Now, as the church celebrates the solemnity of the Immaculate Conception of the Blessed Virgin Mary today, Ndola-based Catholic priest is calling on Christians to be available to God's will. Ndola Diocese Manager Catechetical Father Ephraim Mulenga Maplanga said today's feast is an invitation to self-introspection of the faithful to use their gifts and talents for the salvation of humankind. Father Maplanga added that God calls people differently, like Mother Mary, who responded to God's will. He spoke to Radio Channel News by telephone today.
The beginning of the new era of the salvation history of humanity. All of us as Christians have been given the same opportunity in the sense that God has called us differently and has given us different opportunities and the gifts that we're supposed to use in order to receive the blessings of God. So it is an invitation to all Christians to introspect, to look at their giftedness, their talents, and what God has called them to do within the context of the larger ministry, and to cooperate with the salvation works of God.
Former Rhone Member of Parliament Shimba Kambwili says he is ready to pay back the money for remaining in office as minister despite the dissolution of Parliament in 2016. The Constitutional Court has given former cabinet ministers, their deputies, and provincial ministers 30 days in which to pay back over 4.2 million kwacha, which they got from the government. Dr. Kambwili says when cabinet office officially writes to him, he will pay back the money, saying he is a law-abiding citizen. Dr. Kambwili, however, argued that he remained in office after an instruction from the head of state.
We are going to pay. I have read in the newspaper that I'm supposed to pay 58,641 kwacha in the education way. If the cabinet writes to me officially, even today or tomorrow, I'm going to pay. I'm a law-abiding citizen. But it must be noted that we are paid. That nobody remained in office in his own approach. It was under repression from the president.
President Edgar Lungu had this to say some time back about the contentious issue of ministers remaining in office.
So the person holding the post of vice president, that's how the vice president, minister, Dr. Gambit, or deputy minister, for example, shall continue to hold that position under the Constitution until that appointment is terminated by the president in accordance with the Constitution. This is there. So, countries and women, the Constitution allows ministers to continue in office, period. This is to ensure that they don't break the delivery of service by the executive arm of government. And that is the pursuit.
That's President Edgar Lungu talking about the matter at hand of ministers paying back. This was some time back. In sport, Zambia Under-20 national football team is aiming at defending the title as the COSAFA Under-20 Men's Championship progresses in South Africa. So far, the Juniors Polo has won all the 2 games played at the tournament against Namibia and Comoros Islands. Under-20 coach Perry Mutapa now talks about the final group match against Malawi tomorrow.
It will be a difficult game. Knowing Malawi, they have won 1, lost 1. So they are coming in this encounter for an outright victory. And us, what we need is to avoid defeats. But obviously, by avoiding defeat as well, we should go with that mindset of saying we are going to win this game. Not saying if we go for a draw, then we'll be through, because that can result in maybe we lose the game. So our take going into this game is for an outright win, so that we make sure we don't take out calculators for a place in the semi-finals. So we're taking this game serious than even the last 2 games, because this is the game which will define us going into the semi-final.
This news comes to you in the community service of Radio Chingalo with compliments of Moose Milling and the Zambia Catholic University. International news as monitored from the BBC. Votes are being counted in Ghana after presidential and parliamentary elections. Initial results suggest the incumbent Nana Akufo-Addo is ahead of his rival, the former president John Mahama. The ruling National Patriotic Party is also reported to be leading in the parliamentary polls, but Mr. Mahama's National Democratic Congress disputes this. Britain has just become the first Western country to begin a mass vaccination campaign against COVID-19. The first patient to receive the jab produced by Pfizer and BioNTech was a 90-year-old woman, Margaret Keenan. Other countries are expected to begin their programs within a week. And finally, US media say Joe Biden has chosen a recently retired Army General Lloyd Austin to be his defense secretary. General Austin, who served in Iraq and Afghanistan, would be the first African American to lead the Pentagon. And there we end this afternoon's main news on Radio Chingalo. For these and more stories, you can visit our Facebook page. Log on to Facebook and like the Radio Chingalo page and link to Radio Chingalo.radio12345.com. You can as well listen to Radio Chingalo on Radio Garden. And remember, COVID-19 is still with us. Therefore, wear a mask when in public. Avoid large groups and maintain social distance. Avoid unnecessary movements. Wash your hands frequently for at least 20 seconds. We have the news summary coming up at 16 hours. Of course, thank you so very much for listening. On behalf of the entire news team, my name is Kennedy Mbewa Jr. I always continue listening to the Station of Light as Kangwa Chileshe takes you on the lunch break drive.